The woman running toward the abandoned train tracks didn't know she was about to save the most dangerous man in Chicago. She only knew that someone was dying, and she was a nurse. Monica Adams had seen plenty of blood in her 12 years working emergency rooms. She'd held pressure on gunshot wounds, talked to victims while their lives drained away, witnessed the moment light left eyes that had been full of hope seconds before. But nothing quite prepared her for what she found on the rusted tracks behind the old meatpacking district that frozen January night. In a city where mercy is a liability and kindness gets you killed, one widow was about to prove that sometimes the strongest act of defiance is simply refusing to walk away. If you believe broken people can still become heroes, hit that subscribe button and smash that like to support stories that remind us why humanity matters. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love knowing our community spans the globe. Now, let's witness how one split-second decision changed 3 lives forever. Monica's breath came in sharp white clouds as she stumbled over frozen ground, her worn sneakers slipping on black ice. She'd been cutting through this shortcut for 2 years, ever since gas money became a luxury she couldn't afford. And she'd never seen anything but rats and broken bottles. Tonight, she saw a body. He was sprawled across the tracks like discarded trash, face down, one arm twisted at an angle that made her stomach clench. Dark liquid, too much dark liquid, pooled beneath him, steaming slightly in the 15-degree air. Monica's nursing instincts screamed to check for a pulse. Her survival instincts screamed to run. Chicago's South Side didn't reward good Samaritans. She knew that. Her husband had known that too, right up until the moment knowing it didn't save him from a bullet during a routine traffic stop 2 years ago. But her feet were already moving. "Sir?" Her voice cracked. She dropped to her knees beside him, ignoring the cold that bit through her thin scrubs. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck, feeling for the carotid pulse, and nearly sobbed with relief when she found it, thready, weak, but there. He was alive, barely. Monica's hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking for bleeding sources. Gunshot wound to the abdomen. Another to the shoulder. Defensive wounds across his hands. Bruising around his throat suggesting strangulation. And his face. Even beaten beyond recognition, she could tell he'd been handsome. Strong jaw now split and swollen. Dark hair matted with blood. Expensive suit torn and filthy. This wasn't a random mugging. This was an execution someone had failed to complete. "Okay," she whispered, more to herself than him. "Okay, we're not dying tonight. Not on my watch." She yanked off her coat, the only warm thing she owned, and pressed it against his abdominal wound. Her phone was already in. Her other hand, but she hesitated. Call 911 and they'd ask questions. Questions led to police reports. Police reports led to... what? Whoever did this finding him in a hospital bed to finish the job? Her late husband's voice echoed in her memory. Sometimes the system protects people, Mon. Sometimes it just paints targets on their backs. Monica made a choice that would haunt and save her in equal measure. She didn't call 911. She called her own hospital's non-emergency line, told them she was bringing in a John Doe, and started dragging 200 pounds of unconscious male toward her beat-up Honda Civic parked 3 blocks away. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of grunting, sweating despite the cold, slipping on ice, her nursing scrubs soaking through with his blood and her sweat. 20 minutes where he could have died, where she could have been caught by whoever dumped him there. But Monica Adams hadn't survived 2 years as a widowed single mother by giving up when things got hard. She got him into the back seat, barely, and drove like hell toward Chicago Memorial, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching back to maintain pressure on his abdomen. At every red light, she checked his pulse. Still there. Still fighting. "That's it," she murmured. "Keep fighting. Someone's waiting for you to come home. I know they are." It was what she'd told herself every day since burying her husband. Someone needs you. Sophie needs you. Keep fighting. The emergency bay doors opened with a blast of warm air and antiseptic smell. Monica's colleagues materialized with a gurney, eyes widening at the blood. What the hell, Monica? Found him near the tracks. Multiple GSWs, hypovolemic shock. We need ONEG, start 2 large-bore IVs, and someone page surgery now. Her voice snapped with authority, the tone that made new residents jump. And no police report, not yet. Dr. Reeves, the attending, shot her a look but didn't argue. Monica had earned trust over a decade of flawless work. If she said no police, he'd give her a few hours. They wheeled the stranger into Trauma Bay 2. Monica scrubbed in, even though her shift had ended an hour ago, even though Sophie was with Mrs. Chen next door and would worry. For the next 3 hours, she helped keep a man alive without knowing his name, his story, or that saving him had just made her a target. When he finally stabilized, bandaged, stitched, transfused with 4 units of blood, Monica stood beside his ICU bed and really looked at him for the first time. The bruising was catastrophic. Black and purple bloomed across his ribs. Fingerprints stood out starkly on his throat. Someone had tried very, very hard to kill him. "Who are you?" she whispered. His eyes remained closed. The ventilator breathed for him in steady, mechanical rhythm. Monica registered him under the name Michael Grant, the first fake name that popped into her exhausted brain, and wrote, "Found unresponsive, unknown identity" on his chart. It would buy him maybe 24 hours before administration started asking harder questions. Then she went home, scrubbed his blood from under her fingernails, and crawled into bed beside her sleeping daughter, trying not to think about how easily Sophie could have been the one losing a parent tonight if things had gone differently on those tracks. She didn't know that 3 blocks away, in an SUV with tinted windows, a man with a Russian accent was reviewing traffic camera footage, zooming in on the license plate of a beat-up Honda Civic. She didn't know that the stranger in ICU bed 7 was Alexander Moore, a man so feared in Chicago's underworld that his name alone made grown men sweat. She didn't know that Mercy, tonight, had signed her death warrant, but she'd know soon enough. Alexander woke to pain and the smell of antiseptic. His first coherent thought, "I'm alive." His second, "Someone's going to die for that." He tried to sit up. Agony exploded through his abdomen, forcing him back against pillows that smelled like industrial detergent. Machines beeped. An IV tugged at his hand. Through swollen eyes, he made out cream-colored walls, a television mounted in the corner, a window showing gray Chicago dawn, a hospital. He was in a fucking hospital. Alexander's mind cataloged facts with the cold efficiency that had kept him alive for 41 years. He'd been taken from his car outside the docks. 5 men. Russians, from their accents. Volkov's crew. They'd worked him over professionally. Ribs, kidneys, face. Then the gunshots. Then they'd left him on the tracks to bleed out or freeze, whichever came first. He should be dead. The fact that he wasn't meant someone had intervened. The door opened. A woman in navy scrubs entered, dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, shadows under her eyes that spoke of exhaustion deeper than one missed night's sleep. She carried a tablet and a styrofoam cup of coffee that smelled burnt. She froze when she saw his open eyes. "You're awake." Her voice was soft, almost gentle. It made something uncomfortable twist in his chest. "I'm Monica. I'm one of the nurses here. How's your pain? 1 to 10. Alexander studied her through the narrow slits his swollen eyes allowed. Mid-30s, maybe. Pretty in a tired, no-nonsense way. Wedding ring tan line on her left hand, but no ring. Cheap shoes, budget scrubs. This wasn't a woman who worked in a hospital because she loved the prestige. "Where am I?" His voice, came out gravel rough, ruined by the hands that had crushed his larynx. Chicago Memorial. You've been here about 16 hours. Do you remember what happened? He remembered. Every second. The feel of Konstantin Volkov's rings splitting his cheekbone. The cold of the gun barrel pressed to his temple. The click when it misfired. A miracle that had bought him maybe 30 more seconds before they used the one that worked. No, he lied. Monica's eyes flickered with something. Disbelief, maybe, or understanding. She'd seen enough trauma patients to know when they were lying. You had 2 gunshot wounds, she said quietly. Substantial blood loss, defensive injuries, hypothermia. Someone tried to kill you. Did you call the police? Not yet. She set the coffee down on his bedside table, hands steady. I registered you as John Doe when I brought you in. Told them I found you unconscious, no ID. But that only buys us about... She checked her watch. 6 more hours before administration. Flags it. When I brought you in, Alexander went very still. You found me? By the old meatpacking tracks. You were bleeding out. She said it matter-of-factly, like she pulled half-dead men from train tracks every Tuesday. I stabilized you and drove you here myself. He stared at her. In his world, people stepped over bodies. They didn't drag them to safety. Why? The word came out harsher than he intended. Monica met his gaze directly. No fear. That was unusual. Because you were dying, and I'm a nurse. That's the job. The job is working in a hospital, not... He struggled to sit up again, hissing through clenched teeth. Not risking your life for strangers. Well? She moved closer, adjusting his pillows with practiced efficiency. I did it anyway. Try not to tear your stitches acting tough. Alexander felt something crack in his chest. Some ice-encrusted piece of himself he'd thought permanently frozen. This woman, this stranger, had saved his life expecting nothing in return. In 41 years, the only people who'd ever protected him were people on his payroll. What's your name? He asked. She hesitated. Monica Adams. Monica. He tested it. Soft, ordinary, beautiful. I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything. She stepped back, professional distance reasserting itself. But you do need to tell me if there's anyone I should call. Family? Friends? Alexander almost laughed. Family. The only family he'd had was his mother, dead since he was 8. Friends were liabilities in his world. He had associates, employees, people who served him out of fear or greed or both. No, he said. Monica's expression softened with something that looked like pity, and he hated it. He didn't need pity from saints who saved trash like him. Okay. She pulled out her phone. Then I need to make a call. I have a friend who's a social worker. She can help get you into a shelter program once you're discharged, help with... No. The word came out sharp. No shelters, no social workers. Then where will you go? She asked, and the genuine concern in her voice almost undid him. You can't go back to wherever you were living. Whoever did this might... I'll handle it. You can barely sit up. I've survived worse. It was true, though barely. The beating Volkov's men had given him ranked in his top 3 worst, and he'd been collecting scars since childhood. Monica crossed her arms. Look, I don't know what you're involved in, and, honestly, I don't want to know. But you nearly died. You need at least a week of bed rest, wound care, antibiotics. I'll be fine. You'll be dead, she snapped. And there it was. The steel under the softness. You'll pop a stitch, bleed internally, develop sepsis, and die. Is that what you want? I dragged your stubborn ass off those tracks for nothing? Alexander blinked. No one talked to him like that. No one dared. He found himself fighting a smile. "What do you suggest?" he asked, genuinely curious now. Monica bit her lip, clearly wrestling with something. Finally, "My daughter and I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in South Side. It's small, and it's not much, but..." She exhaled. "You can stay on our couch for a week, just until you're stable enough to leave without dying." Every instinct Alexander had screamed danger. Accepting help meant debt. Debt meant leverage. Leverage got people killed. But looking at this woman, this exhausted, fierce, impossibly kind woman, who'd risked herself for a stranger, he found himself nodding. "1 week," he agreed. "1 week," Monica confirmed. "And then you disappear, and we never see each other again. Deal." Neither of them believed it. Monica left to arrange his discharge paperwork, and Alexander reached for the phone beside his bed, dialing a number he'd memorized 20 years ago. Dominic. His second-in-command's voice was tense. "Jesus Christ, we thought... I'm alive. Meet me at..." He glanced at the address on the hospital paperwork Monica had left. 415 South Ashland, 1 hour, bring clothes, no one else. "Boss, Volkov's people are..." 1 hour, Dom, and find out how they knew where I'd be." He hung up before Dominic could ask questions. Then he lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling, and tried to figure out why accepting help from a stranger felt more dangerous than facing the Russians who'd tried to kill him. Outside his room, Monica leaned against the wall, phone pressed to her ear. "Mrs. Chen? Hi, it's Monica. I'm so sorry, but I need to ask a huge favor." Sophie Adams was not a stupid kid. At 10 years old, she'd already figured out that her mom cried in the shower when she thought Sophie was asleep. That the reason they ate pasta 4 nights a week wasn't because Mom loved carbs. That the faded photo of Dad in his police uniform stayed face down in the drawer because looking at it hurt too much. She'd also figured out that the man currently sleeping on their couch was dangerous. "Mom," Sophie whispered, peering around the corner of the hallway at the stranger sprawled across their sagging second-hand sofa. "Why does he have a gun?" Monica's head snapped up from where she was brewing coffee in their cramped kitchen. "What?" "Under the couch cushion. I saw it when I grabbed my library book." Sophie kept her voice low, the way Dad had taught her when they played spy missions before bedtime. "The black handle thing. That's a gun, right?" Monica's hands stilled, on the coffee pot. Her face did something complicated, fear and resignation and tired acceptance all at once. "Go to your room, baby." "But..." "Now, Sophie, please." Sophie went, but she left her door cracked an inch, just enough to hear. She heard her mother's footsteps, heard the soft rustle of couch cushions being moved, then silence that stretched so long Sophie's chest hurt from holding her breath. Finally, her mom's voice. "Who are you? Really?" The man's response was rough, sleep-dragged. "Someone who should have left yesterday." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give you." More silence. Then her mom, quieter now. "Are you going to hurt us?" "No." The word came fast, hard with certainty. "Never." "Then why do you need a gun in my home?" Sophie heard the couch creak as the man sat up. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost gentle. "Because the people who tried to kill me are still looking. And if they find me here..." He trailed off. "I'll leave. Right now. I should have left already. You can barely walk to the bathroom. I've functioned on worse. That's not..." Her mom's voice broke slightly, then stronger. "That's not the point. The point is my daughter lives here. If you brought danger to our door, I didn't mean to. And God, he actually sounded sorry. I thought I had more time before they tracked me, but there was a car outside this morning, black SUV, Russian plates. The fear that spiked through Sophie was immediate and sharp. After Dad died, Russian had become a word that meant dangerous in their house. Dad's partner had told them at the funeral that the man who shot him had Russian mob connections. She heard her mother's sharp inhale. "You need to leave," Monica said. "Right now. I don't care if you... I can protect you. I don't need protection from a criminal. You do now." His voice went hard. "They saw you. That night on the tracks, they had cameras. They know you pulled me out. They know you brought me here." Sophie's stomach dropped. "No." Her mom's voice was barely a whisper. "No, that's not. I didn't. You saved my life. In their world, that makes you my ally, which makes you their enemy." The man moved. Sophie heard his sharp hiss of pain. "I have a place, secure, outside the city. You and your daughter come with me until I neutralize the threat." "Absolutely not. It's not a request. You don't get to... Mrs. Adams." The way he said it stopped her cold. "I'm very good at what I do. And what I do is survive. Those men, they don't make threats. They don't negotiate. They saw your face. They have your address. And they will come." The longest silence yet. Sophie pressed her face against the door crack, watching her mother's shadow on the hallway wall. It was shaking. "How long?" Monica finally asked. "A week. Maybe 2. Just until I handle it." "Handle it how?" "You don't want to know." "If I'm trusting you with my daughter's life, I damn well do want to know." This man was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm going to make them understand that touching you or your child means war. Real war. The kind that costs millions and ends bloodlines. I'm going to make you too expensive to kill." It should have sounded insane. Instead, it sounded calm, factual, like he was describing grocery shopping, not whatever horrifying negotiation happened in his world. "And if that doesn't work," her mom asked, "then I'll eliminate the threat permanently." Sophie heard her mother's breath catch. "You mean you'll kill them?" "Yes." "Jesus Christ." "I won't apologize for keeping you alive." His voice gentled slightly. "But I won't do it here. Not in your home. Not where your daughter sleeps." The shadow on the wall moved. Her mom, pacing. 1 week, Monica finally said. 1 week at your secure location. And then you fix this. And then we never see you again. Agreed. And no violence in front of Sophie. Ever. Agreed. And you tell me the truth. About who you are. What you do. All of it. Pause. Agreed. Sophie heard footsteps, then her mom's voice at her bedroom door. "Sophie, baby, come out here, please." She opened the door slowly, making her eyes big and innocent, even though she'd heard everything. Her mom knelt down, hands on Sophie's shoulders. Her eyes were red. "We're going on a little trip," Monica said, voice steady despite everything. "Just for a few days. Mr. What's your name?" "Moore, Alexander Moore." "Mr. Moore is going to let us stay at his house while he takes care of some business. It'll be safe there, safer than here." Sophie looked past her mom to the man on the couch. He was watching them with dark eyes that seemed too old for his face. Bruises covered half of him. But when he met Sophie's gaze, he didn't look away. Didn't try to smile or placate. He just nodded once, slow and serious, like she was an adult who deserved respect. "Okay," Sophie said. "But I'm bringing Mr. Buttons." The man, Alexander, blinked. "Who?" "My stuffed rabbit. He has anxiety." Something flickered across Alexander's face. almost like a smile. Then Mr. Buttons definitely comes. Monica squeezed Sophie's shoulders. Go pack a bag, sweetheart. 1 week of clothes. Sophie went to her room but left the door open, pulling her backpack from the closet. As she stuffed in jeans and her favorite Wonder Woman shirt, she heard her mom's voice, low and fierce. If anything happens to her, it won't. If it does, then I'll die before she gets hurt. You have my word. Her mom didn't respond, but after a minute, Sophie heard, I'm trusting you. Don't make me regret it. I won't. An hour later, they were in a black SUV with tinted windows, driven by a man Alexander called Dom, who had scars on his knuckles and didn't talk. Sophie sat in the back between her mom and Alexander, clutching Mr. Buttons tight. As Chicago streets turned to suburbs, then empty highway lined with snow-heavy trees, Sophie watched Alexander's reflection in the window. He kept his eyes on the road behind them, one hand resting near his hip where she knew the gun was. Mr. Moore? She asked quietly. Alex is fine. Alex, did you kill people? Is that why those men hurt you? Her mom sucked in a breath. Sophie, it's okay. Alexander's voice was surprisingly gentle, and the answer is yes. I've killed people. Bad people. But still people. Did they deserve it? He thought about that. I thought so at the time. Do you think so? Now? His dark eyes met hers in the window's reflection. I'm not sure I'm qualified to judge anymore. It was the most honest thing any adult had said to her in 2 years. Okay, Sophie said. I just wanted to know. Monica's hand found hers and squeezed tight. As the SUV pulled through massive iron gates into a property surrounded by walls and guards, Sophie realized her life had just become something out of the movies she wasn't allowed to watch. And weirdly, she wasn't scared anymore. The Moore estate looked like something from a TV show about rich people. Sophie pressed her face against the SUV window, staring at the mansion rising from snow-covered grounds like a fortress made of stone and glass. It had actual towers, actual stone lions flanking the steps, windows that glowed warm gold in the twilight. Holy crap, she breathed. Language, her mom said automatically, but her voice was faint. She was staring too. Alexander shifted beside them, wincing. It's secure. 12-foot walls, camera coverage, armed guards rotating every 6 hours. No one gets in without clearance. It's a castle, Sophie said. It's excessive, Monica murmured. It's home. Alexander said it quietly, almost apologetically, like he was embarrassed, which was weird for someone who lived in an actual castle. Dom pulled the SUV into a circular driveway and came around to open their door. Monica helped Alexander out. He was still moving carefully, one hand pressed to his bandaged ribs, and Sophie grabbed their bags, determined to be useful. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her 60s emerged, gray hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing slacks and a cardigan that screamed grandmother energy. Alexander James Moore. Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. You look like hell. Missed you too, Marie. But there was warmth in his voice Sophie hadn't heard before. The woman, Marie, turned her sharp gaze on Monica and Sophie. Her expression softened immediately. And you must be the angel who saved this stubborn fool's life. She extended a hand to Monica. Marie Castellano. I run this household, which means I run him, whether he admits it or not. Monica shook her hand, still looking shell-shocked. Monica Adams. And this is my daughter, Sophie. Marie's eyes landed on Sophie, and something in her face went impossibly gentle. Hello, sweetheart. Are you hungry? I made minestrone, and there's fresh bread. Sophie's stomach growled. audibly. She couldn't remember the last time someone had offered them homemade anything. "Yes, please," she said politely, the way Dad had taught her. "Good girl." Marie ushered them inside, firing instructions over her shoulder. "Dom, take their bags to the East Wing. Guest suite next to the library. Alexander, you need to lie down before you fall down, and someone call Dr. Patterson. Those bandages need changing." Alexander opened his mouth to argue. Marie pointed one finger at him. "Don't." He closed his mouth. Sophie tried not to giggle. The inside of the mansion was even more overwhelming than the outside. Marble floors. A chandelier that probably cost more than their entire apartment building. Artwork on the walls that looked museum fancy. But it was also warm. A fire crackled in a fireplace big enough for Sophie to stand in. The air smelled like bread and soup and wood smoke. Real Christmas trees stood in corners, decorated with white lights. It felt lived in, loved. Marie led them through hallways that seemed to go on forever, finally stopping at a door that opened into a suite bigger than Sophie's entire bedroom at home. 2 bedrooms, shared bathroom, sitting area, Marie explained. Fresh towels in the linen closet. If you need anything, just pick up that phone. She gestured to an actual landline on the desk. And dial 0. Someone will come. Monica stood in the center of the room, looking lost. "This is too much. We can't." "You can and you will." Marie's voice gentled. "Alexander owes you his life, Mrs. Adams. Letting you sleep in a comfortable bed is the absolute least he can do. Now come. Dinner's getting cold." Dinner was served in a dining room with a table that could seat 20 but was set for 4. Sophie, her mom, Alexander, and Marie. The intimacy of it felt strange in such a huge space. Sophie tried not to stare as she ate the best soup she'd ever tasted. Her mom kept glancing at Alexander like he was a bomb that might explode. Alexander moved food around his plate, clearly in too much pain to eat much. "So," Marie broke the silence. "How long are we hosting?" "A week?" Monica said firmly. "Maybe 2. Then we go home." "And the Russian situation?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "Being handled." "By handled, you mean..." "I mean handled, Marie." His voice went cold in a way that made Sophie's mom stiffen. Marie just raised an eyebrow. "Don't use that tone with me, boy. I changed your diapers." Sophie choked on, her water. Alexander's face did something between mortified and annoyed. "Marie..." "He was a fussy baby," Marie told Sophie confidentially. "Cried constantly. Only person who could calm him down was his mother." And just like that, the temperature in the room dropped. Alexander's knuckles went white around his fork. He stared at his plate, jaw working like he was physically biting back words. Marie's expression flickered with regret. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have..." "It's fine." But his voice was pure ice. "Excuse me. I need to make some calls." He stood, moving with the careful control of someone in serious pain, and left the dining room without looking back. Monica started to rise. "Should I..." "Let him be," Marie said quietly. "Some wounds don't show up on x-rays." Sophie watched him go, thinking about the way his whole body had gone rigid at the mention of his mother, the way he'd looked almost scared. "What happened to his mom?" she asked. Marie was quiet for a long moment. Then, "She died when he was very young. That's his story to tell, not mine." Later, after Sophie had been tucked into the softest bed she'd ever felt, she couldn't sleep. The room was too quiet, too big. At home, she could hear Mrs. Chen's TV through the wall, her mom moving around in the next room. Here, there was just silence. Sophie slipped out of bed, padding through the suite in her bare feet. The door to the sitting room was open, and through it, she could see light from the hallway. She followed it. The mansion at night was different. Shadows stretched long across marble floors. The Christmas trees glowed but felt lonely somehow, like they were waiting for people who never came. Sophie found herself in front of a door that was slightly ajar. Light spilled through the crack, and she could hear Alexander's voice, low and tense. "I don't care what it costs, Dominic. I want every property Volkov owns in Chicago mapped. Every business, every connection, every person he's ever shared a drink with." Silence. No meetings, no negotiations. His voice went colder. "He touched something that belongs under my protection. That's not a conversation. That's a declaration of war." More silence. "Because if I let this slide, every two-bit mobster in Chicago will think I'm weak. And weak men don't keep their empires." Sophie should have left, should have gone back to bed. But something in his voice made her push the door open wider. Alexander was standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, staring out at the snow-covered grounds. He'd taken off his shirt to change bandages, and Sophie could see the full extent of his injuries, bruises that covered his entire torso, bandages wrapped around his ribs and shoulder, a patchwork of old scars that told stories she was too young to read. He looked like a soldier, or maybe a gladiator. He also looked exhausted. "Handle it," he said into the phone, and hung up. Then he caught her reflection in the window. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. "Too quiet," Sophie admitted. She stepped into what appeared to be his office. Dark wood, leather chairs, a desk covered in papers and laptops. Alexander turned, grabbing a t-shirt from the chair and pulling it on with a grimace. "Fair enough. I hated quiet at your age, too." "Is that why you have all the guards? So it's not quiet?" He almost smiled. "Smart kid." He gestured to the leather chair by the fireplace. "Want some hot chocolate? Marie makes it, from scratch." Sophie nodded and settled into the chair that was way too big for her. Alexander pressed a button on his desk phone. "Marie? Could you—" "Yes, I know it's late. No, I'm not working, There's a child who can't sleep." "Yes, that works. Thanks." He hung up and lowered himself into the opposite chair with visible effort. They sat in silence for a minute. Then Sophie asked the question that had been bothering her since dinner. "Why don't you want to talk about your mom?" Alexander went very still. "That's a complicated answer. I'm 10. I can handle complicated." His dark eyes studied her. "Your father was a police officer." It wasn't a question. Sophie nodded anyway. "How did he die?" "Shot." The word still hurt, even 2 years later. "During a traffic stop. The man had a gun under his seat." "I'm sorry." "Everyone says that." Sophie pulled her knees to her chest. "But it doesn't bring him back." "No, it doesn't." Alexander was quiet for a moment. "My mother was killed, too. I was 8. Sophie's breath caught. "How?" "My father." He said it simply, matter-of-factly, like he was talking about the weather. "He was drunk. Again. She tried to leave. He didn't let her." "Did he go to jail?" "No, he's dead too." Alexander's voice was empty. "I made sure of that." Sophie should have been scared, should have run to get her mom. But all she felt was a strange, sad understanding. "Do you miss her?" "Every day." His voice cracked slightly. "Every single day for 33 years. Marie arrived with hot chocolate on a silver tray, took one look at both of them, and quietly left. Sophie sipped her drink, thinking. Then, "Is that why you help people? Kids and moms, I mean. Because you couldn't help her?" Alexander's hands tightened around his mug. For a long time, he didn't answer. Finally, "Yes, that's exactly why." "That's good," Sophie said. Dad used to say the worst things that happen to us can make us into the best people, if we choose. Your dad was a wise man. Yeah. Sophie felt tears prick her eyes. He was. They sat together in the quiet, which didn't feel quiet anymore, not really, and drank hot chocolate while snow fell outside the windows. And for the first time since her father died, Sophie felt like someone actually understood what the empty space inside her chest felt like. Monica found them asleep in Alexander's office at 3 a.m. Sophie was curled in the oversized leather chair, half buried under a cashmere throw blanket that probably cost more than their monthly rent. Her daughter's face was peaceful, relaxed in a way Monica hadn't seen in months. Alexander was in the opposite chair, head tilted back, one hand still loosely holding an empty mug of what smelled like hot chocolate. Even unconscious, pain lined his face. Monica should wake them. Send Sophie back to bed. Maintain the boundaries she'd been desperately trying to keep since they arrived at this impossible place. Instead, she found herself studying the man who'd turned their lives upside down. In sleep, he looked younger, less dangerous. The harsh lines around his mouth softened. She could see the boy he must have been before whatever darkness shaped him took hold. Marie appeared beside her, silent as a ghost despite her age. He doesn't sleep much, the older woman murmured. Nightmares. Has them since he was a child. How long have you worked for him? Monica asked quietly. 32 years, since the day his mother died and he showed up on my doorstep. 8 years old and covered in her blood. Marie's voice was matter of fact, but her eyes held old pain. He'd walked 6 miles from his father's house, didn't cry, didn't speak, just stood there and asked if he could come in. Monica's breath caught. What did you do? What any decent person would do. I took him in, cleaned him up, called the authorities. Marie's mouth tightened. Not that it helped. They sent him back to his father for 6 more months before the bastard drank himself to death. Jesus. After that, I became his legal guardian, raised him as best I could. Marie looked at Alexander with unmistakable affection. He's not perfect. Lord knows he's done things I can't forgive. But he's not the monster people think he is. He kills people, Monica said flatly. Yes, bad people mostly. Marie turned to her. Does that make it right? No. But in his world, Mrs. Adams, you either become the predator or you die as prey. And that boy, she gestured to the sleeping man, chose to survive. Monica wanted to argue, wanted to point out that survival didn't justify violence, that good intentions didn't erase blood on your hands. But she'd seen too much in the ER to believe the world was that simple. I should get Sophie to bed, she said instead. Let her sleep. She's safe here. Marie started to leave, then paused. He's good with children. Always has been. Never had any of his own. Says his life's too dangerous. But watching him with your daughter. She smiled softly. Maybe he's wrong about that. After Marie left, Monica stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then she did something probably stupid. She sat down on the couch across from them, pulled one of the throw blankets over herself, and let her exhausted body finally rest. She woke to weak winter sunlight streaming through windows and Sophie's delighted laughter. Your turn, Alex. You have to answer. That's a terrible question. Alexander's voice protested, but there was warmth in it. Those are the rules. Truth or dare. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? Monica opened her eyes to find Sophie cross-legged on the floor, Mr. Buttons in her lap, staring up at Alexander with rapt attention. He was still in his chair, looking like he'd barely moved, coffee mug in hand. Invisibility, he answered. So I could move through the world without anyone seeing me. That's sad. Sophie said bluntly. Alexander blinked. What? That's a sad power to want, like you want to disappear. Monica saw him stiffen, saw the walls slam back into place. But Sophie wasn't done. If I had a superpower, I'd want to fly, so I could go anywhere and see everything and nobody could cage me. The metaphor hung in the air. Alexander's expression did something complicated. That's a good power, he said quietly. Yeah. Sophie hugged Mr. Buttons tighter. Dad used to say I could do anything if I was brave enough, so I'm gonna be brave. Alexander looked at her for a long moment. Then, your father was right. I know. Sophie stood, brushing off her pajamas. I'm hungry. Marie said she'd make pancakes if I asked nicely. She skipped out of the office, leaving Monica and Alexander alone. Sorry, Monica said, sitting up and trying to smooth her hair. I didn't mean to fall asleep. It's fine. You were exhausted. He set down his coffee. She's a good kid. Yeah, she is. Monica studied him. What did you two talk? About last night? Loss. Survival. Hot chocolate. He met her eyes. She asked about my mother. What did you tell her? The truth. That my father killed her. That I've spent my whole life trying to make up for not being able to save her. Monica's chest tightened. You were 8 years old. I know. Doesn't change how it feels. They sat in heavy silence. Then Monica asked the question that had been burning in her mind since they arrived. This place. The guards. The walls. The money. How does someone go from a murdered mother and dead father to this? Alexander's laugh was bitter. You want the sanitized version or the truth? Truth. I started stealing to eat. Got good at it. Fell in with a crew by the time I was 14. Worked my way up. Made connections. Learned who to trust and who to eliminate. He said it without emotion. By 25, I'd built my own organization. By 30, I controlled half of Chicago's underworld. And now, he gestured vaguely. Here I am. And the violence is part of the job. I don't enjoy it, but I don't apologize for it either. His dark eyes were steady. In my world, showing weakness gets you killed. Being kind gets you killed. The only thing that keeps you alive is being scarier than everyone else. That's no way to live. Maybe not. But it's kept me breathing for 41 years. Monica wanted to argue, but before she could, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered warily. Hello? Silence. Then a voice, with a thick Russian accent. Mrs. Adams, you have something that belongs to us. Her blood went ice cold. Who is this? You know who, and you know what we want. The voice was pleasant, conversational. Give him to us, and you and your daughter go home safe. Refuse. He let the implication hang. I don't. You have 24 hours. We'll be in touch with location. The line went dead. Monica's hand shook as she lowered the phone. Alexander was already on his feet, pain forgotten. What did they say? She told him. His face went from concerned to absolutely murderous. Pack a bag, he said, voice tight with controlled rage. You're not staying in the guest wing anymore. You're moving to the secure floor, and Sophie doesn't leave the estate without armed escort. You said we'd be safe here. You are safe, but safe doesn't mean untouchable. He pulled out his own phone. Dominic, we have a breach. I want every communication line swept, every guard vetted again, and I want to, know how the hell the Russians got Mrs. Adams's number. He hung up and turned to Monica. His eyes were dark promises of violence. I need to ask you something, and you need to answer honestly. Okay. When this is over, When I've dealt with Volkov and his people, do you want them dead or disappeared?" Monica's stomach lurched. "What?" "Dead means I kill them. Disappeared means I arrange for them to leave the country and never come back. Both achieve the same goal, but one of them gives you the moral high ground to stand on later." It was the most pragmatic, horrifying question anyone had ever asked her. "I'm not asking you to kill anyone for me," she said. "I'm not asking permission. I'm asking preference. Because either way, they're done threatening you." Monica stared at this man. This dangerous, damaged man who somehow cared whether her conscience was clear. "Disappeared," she finally said. "If that's actually possible." "It's possible. Expensive, but possible." "Then that." Alexander nodded. "Okay, disappeared it is." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "Monica?" "Yeah? Thank you. For pulling me off those tracks. For bringing me into your home, for..." He struggled with words. "For seeing past what I am to what I'm trying to be." Before she could respond, Sophie burst back in, syrup on her face and pure joy in her eyes. "Mom, there's a library with an actual rolling ladder. Can I go explore?" Alexander's demeanor shifted instantly, from killer to guardian, in a heartbeat. "I'll take you," he said. "Your mom needs to make some phone calls." As they left together, the exhausted nurse, the Mafia boss, and the 10-year-old girl who somehow trusted them both, Monica realized something terrifying. She was starting to feel safe here. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. The library became Sophie's sanctuary. 3 stories of books, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking snow-dusted gardens, leather armchairs that swallowed her small frame, and that glorious rolling ladder Marie said was original to the 1920s estate. Sophie spent hours there, sometimes reading, sometimes just existing in the quiet. And increasingly, Alexander joined her. He'd arrive with papers and laptop, settling into the chair by the fireplace while she colonized the window seat with Mr. Buttons and whatever book had caught her attention that day. They didn't always talk, but the silence felt companionable. "Hey, Alex?" He looked up from his laptop. 4 days into their stay, the bruising on his face had shifted from black to green-yellow. He moved easier now, though Monica still caught him wincing when he thought no one was watching. "Yeah? Why don't you have kids?" Direct, blunt, very Sophie. Alexander closed his laptop slowly. "That's a complicated question. You say that a lot. Because life's complicated." Sophie rolled her eyes. Adults use "it's complicated" when they don't want to give real answers. He smiled despite himself. "Fair. Okay. Real answer. My world is dangerous. Bringing a child into it would be selfish. But you're protecting me and Mom right now. That's different. You're temporary. You'll go home when this is over. What if we didn't want to?" The question landed like a bomb. Alexander went very still. "Sophie, I'm just saying, hypothetically." But her voice was small, hopeful. "Mom's happier here. She doesn't cry in the shower anymore. And I don't wake up scared that someone's going to hurt us." "You wake up scared at home?" Sophie shrugged, trying to play it casual. "Sometimes. Our neighborhood's not great. There's yelling a lot. Sirens. One time someone tried to break into Mrs. Chen's apartment." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Does your mom know?" "I don't tell her stuff like that. She's already stressed." He studied her for a long moment. "You're 10 years old. You shouldn't have to protect your mother's feelings." "Yeah, well..." Sophie picked at Mr. Button's ear. "She shouldn't have to work too. Jobs either. But here we are." Alexander stood, moved to the window seat. He sat down carefully, leaving space between them. Can I tell you something? He asked. Sophie nodded. I spent my whole childhood feeling like I had to be the adult. Had to protect my mom. Had to hide how scared I was, and it... He paused, choosing words. It stole something from me. Made me grow up too fast. Did it work? Protecting her? No. His voice went rough. She died anyway. And I've spent 33 years wondering if I'd been stronger, smarter, braver. Maybe I could have saved her. Sophie was quiet. Then, that's stupid. Alexander blinked. Excuse me? You were 8. You can't fight grown-ups when you're 8. That's not how it works. She twisted to face him fully. It's not your fault she died. It's your dad's. I know that, logically. But your heart doesn't believe it. No. He looked at her, really looked. How are you this smart? Therapy. Sophie said it matter-of-factly. Mom, made me go after Dad died. Dr. Williams says our brains know stuff our hearts don't believe yet. And that's okay. We just gotta keep working on it. Alexander's expression did something complicated. Admiration and pain, and something almost like jealousy. Your mom made good choices for you. Yeah, she's pretty great. Sophie hesitated. Do you think, if things were different, you'd want kids? He was quiet for a long time. Long enough that Sophie thought he might not answer. Finally, yes, I think I would have liked that. It's not too late. I'm 41, Sophie. So? My friend Emma's dad is 50 and just had a baby with his new wife. She grinned. You're not dead yet. Despite everything, Alexander laughed. Real laughter, not the bitter edge he usually carried. No, not dead yet. The library door opened. Monica entered, phone in hand, face pale. They sent an address, she said without preamble. For the exchange, tomorrow night. Alexander was on his feet. Instantly, pain forgotten. Where? The old stockyards, south side. Her voice shook slightly. They want me to bring you, alone. Absolutely not. They said if anyone else comes... I don't care what they said. Alexander's voice went cold. You're not going anywhere near those stockyards. They have guns. I have more guns. He pulled out his phone. And more men. And significantly less patience. Alexander. No. He turned to face her fully. I've spent 4 days planning. This. Mapping their operations, identifying weaknesses, building leverage. I'm not throwing that away because Volkov wants a dramatic confrontation. Monica crossed her arms. Then what's your plan? I'm going to end this. Tonight. Before they get another chance to threaten you. By end this, you mean... I mean I'm making Konstantin Volkov understand that you and Sophie are under my protection. Permanently. And that touching you means the kind of war that destroys empires. You said, disappeared, not dead. And I meant it. But first, he needs to understand the cost. Sophie watched them argue, tension crackling between them like lightning. Her mom looked scared, but also something else. Something Sophie had seen in her face when she looked at Dad's photo late at night. Grief. But also the memory of feeling safe. What if we went with you? Sophie asked. Both adults turned to stare at her. What? Monica's voice went shrill. Absolutely not. I don't mean to the meeting, Sophie clarified. I mean, what if we went somewhere else? Somewhere the Russians can't find us. So Alex can do his thing without worrying about us. Alexander's expression shifted. That's actually not a terrible idea. I have a sister, Monica said slowly. In Michigan. The Russians don't know about her. Drive there tonight. Stay a week. Alexander was already pulling out his phone again. I'll send guards with you, 2 cars, armed escort the whole way. And you? I handle Volkov. Make sure he and his people understand the new reality. Then I come get you when it's safe. Monica looked torn. I don't like running. It's not running. It's tactical repositioning. He met her eyes. And it lets me do what needs doing without worrying that you'll get caught in the crossfire. Sophie saw her mom waver, saw the moment she realized Alexander was right. Okay, Monica finally said. Okay, we'll go. Alexander nodded. Pack light. You leave in an hour. As Monica hurried out to pack, Sophie lingered. Alex? Yeah? You're gonna be okay, right? Like, you're not gonna die doing this? His face softened. I'm very good at not dying, Sophie. I've had a lot of practice. Promise? I promise. She hugged him then, quick and impulsive, and probably too trusting. He went rigid for a second, then carefully, like she was made of glass, hugged her back. Thank you, she whispered into his shirt. For keeping us safe. His arms tightened slightly. Always. An hour later, Sophie sat in the back of an SUV beside her mom, watching the estate disappear in the rearview mirror. Guards flanked them in a second vehicle. Michigan was 7 hours away. She clutched Mr. Buttons and tried not to think about the fact that she was leaving behind the first place she'd felt safe in 2 years. Behind them, inside the mansion, Alexander stood in his office and made the call that would change everything. Dominic, it's time. Activate Protocol 7. Silence. Yes, I'm sure. And, Dom, make it loud enough that every Russian in Chicago hears it. Volkov wanted my attention. Now he has it. He hung up, checked his weapons, and prepared to become the monster people feared. Because sometimes, protecting angels required becoming a devil. Monica's sister lived in a small town outside Detroit where nothing ever happened, and people still left their doors unlocked. For 3 days, Sophie and her mom existed in limbo, safe but anxious, comfortable but disconnected. Her aunt's house smelled like cinnamon and old books. The guest room had quilts her grandmother had made. It should have felt like home. But Sophie kept thinking about the library with the rolling ladder, about hot chocolate at 3 a.m, about a dangerous man who looked at her like she mattered. On the 4th morning, Monica's phone finally rang. Sophie watched her mom's face cycle through fear, relief, disbelief. Okay, Monica whispered. Okay. We'll be there. She hung up, hands shaking. That was Alexander, it's done. The Russians, she swallowed. They're gone. We can go home. Home to our apartment? Sophie asked. Her mom hesitated. Or, he said we can come back to the estate. If we want. For as long as we want. Something in her voice made Sophie's heart jump. Do you want to? I don't know, baby, it's complicated. That word again. But this time, Monica's eyes held something Sophie recognized. Hope. I want to see him, Sophie said. I want to make sure he's okay. Her mom smiled, soft and sad and understanding. Yeah, me too. They arrived at the estate just after dark. The gates opened smoothly, security nodding them through. But as they pulled up the circular drive, something felt different. The mansion was lit up like Christmas, every window glowing, warm and welcoming. And standing on the front steps, Marie beside him, was Alexander. He looked tired. A new bruise darkened his jaw. His knuckles were bandaged. But he was alive, whole, waiting. Sophie was out of the car before it fully stopped, running up the steps and throwing herself at him. You're okay. You promised you'd be okay, and you are. He caught her, grunting slightly, but holding on. Told you. Very good at not dying. Monica approached more slowly, eyes scanning him for injuries. What happened? Can I tell you inside? It's freezing out here. They settled in the library. Their library, Sophie thought possessively, with hot chocolate and the fire crackling. Marie had disappeared with a knowing smile. Alexander told them the abbreviated version. How he'd leveraged information about Volkov's illegal operations to force a meeting with higher-level Russian mob leadership. How he'd presented evidence that Volkov had been skimming from his own organization. How he'd offered the Russians a choice: remove Volkov from Chicago permanently, or watch Alexander systematically dismantle every operation they had in the Midwest. They chose option 1, he finished. Volkov and his immediate crew are on a plane to Moscow, with instructions that returning to American soil means immediate execution by their own people. So it's really over? Monica's voice was small. It's really over. You're safe. Sophie's safe. He met her eyes. You can go home. I'll make sure your apartment building has upgraded security, or... He trailed off. Or, Monica prompted, or you stay. Here, for as long as you want. The offer hung in the air. Sophie held her breath. Alexander, Monica said carefully. What are you asking? He looked uncomfortable, vulnerable in a way Sophie had never seen. I'm asking if you'd consider making this your home, both of you. No pressure, no expectations, just... He struggled. Just a safe place to be. Why? Monica's voice was barely a whisper. Because your daughter makes me laugh. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Because this house has been empty for 20 years, and having you in it makes it feel like a home instead of a fortress. He swallowed hard. Because I'm 41 years old and I've never had a family, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'd like to try, if you'll let me. Tears slid down Monica's face. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Your world is dangerous. Less so now, and getting safer. He leaned forward. I can't promise perfect. I can't promise easy, but I can promise safe, protected, cared for. Sophie watched her mother's face, saw the war between fear and hope. Mom, she said quietly, it's okay to be happy again. Dad would want that. Monica's breath hitched. She looked at Sophie, then at Alexander, then back at Sophie. Are you sure, baby? This is a big decision. I'm sure. I want to stay. Monica turned to Alexander. I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we stay, I need honesty. Always. No more secrets about your business. No violence near Sophie. And I get final say on what's safe for my daughter. Agreed. All of it. And we go slow. Whatever this is between us. She gestured between them. We don't rush it. Sophie comes first. Always. He agreed immediately. Monica took a shaky breath. Okay, we'll try. 3 months. We stay 3 months. And then we reassess. Alexander's smile was hesitant but genuine. 3 months. Sophie whooped, tackling her mom in a hug. Over her daughter's shoulder, Monica met Alexander's eyes and saw her own fragile hope reflected back. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe this would blow up spectacularly. But maybe, just maybe, broken people could build something beautiful together. 3 months became 6. 6 became a year. The guest suite became their permanent rooms, though Sophie spent more time in the library than her bedroom. Monica started working part-time at a hospital closer to the estate, using her savings, which had grown considerably thanks to not paying rent, to finally finish her nurse practitioner certification. Alexander slowly extricated himself from the most dangerous parts of his business, delegating to Dominic and focusing on legitimate investments. It wasn't a clean exit, but it was progress. And somewhere between family dinners, and Sophie's 11th birthday party, and late-night conversations over hot chocolate, Monica and Alexander fell in love. It wasn't dramatic, wasn't a lightning bolt moment. It was Alexander learning to braid Sophie's hair for school, Monica falling asleep on his shoulder during movie nights, shared glances across the dinner table, his hand finding hers in the dark. It was him finally opening the room where his mother had died, letting Monica stand with him in that space, and then together deciding to repaint it soft lavender for Sophie. It was Monica waking from nightmares about losing her late husband and finding Alexander there, solid and steady, promising she'd never face grief alone again. It was Sophie drawing pictures of their new family, stick figures of her, Mom, Alex, and Marie, and hanging them in the library like trophies. On a snowy February evening, almost exactly 2 years after Monica had pulled a dying man from train tracks, Alexander asked her to marry him. No grand gesture. Just the two of them in the library after Sophie had gone to bed, firelight casting shadows, his voice rough with emotion. I know I'm not what you imagined. I know I come with baggage and complications and a past I can't erase. But I love you, Monica. I love Sophie. And I want to spend whatever time I have left making sure you both know you're cherished. He pulled out a simple ring, vintage, beautiful, nothing ostentatious. Will you marry me? Monica looked at this man, this dangerous, damaged, unexpectedly gentle man, and thought about second chances, about how the worst nights can lead to the best mornings, about choosing to trust again. Yes, she whispered. Yes. They married in the spring, small ceremony in the garden with Marie crying happy tears and Sophie as maid of honor. Monica wore a simple dress. Alexander wore a suit and the most genuine smile anyone had seen on his face in decades. And when Sophie asked if she could legally change her last name to Moore, they both cried. The adoption papers were finalized on Sophie's 12th birthday. Alexander gave her a necklace with a compass charm. So you always find your way home, he said quietly. Sophie hugged him fiercely. You're my home now, Dad. It was the first time she'd called him that. Alexander's eyes went bright with tears he didn't bother hiding. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too. Monica watched them from the doorway, heart so full it ached. Her late husband would always be part of their story. His photo sat on the mantel alongside new family pictures. But grief didn't mean giving up on joy. It meant honoring love by choosing to love again. On a quiet Sunday morning 5 years after that night on the train tracks, Monica woke to sunlight streaming through bedroom, windows, and Alexander's arm around her waist. Downstairs, she could hear Sophie, 17 now, fierce and brilliant and everything Monica had hoped she'd become, arguing with Marie about breakfast choices. I'm making pancakes whether you like it or not, young lady. But Marie, I want waffles. Pancakes build character. Alexander stirred beside her, smiling without opening his eyes. Should we intervene? Absolutely not. Marie's got it handled. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. Have I told you lately that saving my life was the best decision you ever made? Monica turned to face him, studying the silver threading through his dark hair, the smile lines around his eyes, the peace that had slowly replaced the hardness over these 5 years. Have I told you lately that letting you save mine was the best decision I ever made? His hand came up to cup her face. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. They lay there in comfortable silence, listening to their daughter laugh downstairs, wrapped in the warmth of a home they'd built from broken pieces. Sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we save first. And sometimes the scariest thing we can do is give broken people permission to try again. Monica never regretted that night on the train tracks. Not when Alexander had nightmares about his mother, Not when old enemies resurfaced briefly before being handled. Not when Sophie struggled with anxiety about losing another parent. Because for every hard moment, there were hundreds of beautiful ones. Alexander teaching Sophie to drive, patient and calm, even when she clipped the mailbox. Family vacations to places Monica had only dreamed of, but where Alexander was just dad and not the boss. Sophie's college acceptance letters, celebrated with champagne and happy tears and Alexander's fierce pride. Monica's nurse practitioner graduation, where her daughter and husband sat in the front row cheering. Quiet Sunday mornings exactly like this one, where peace was no longer a fantasy, but their daily reality. They weren't perfect. They still struggled. But they struggled together, and that made all the difference. In the end, Monica learned that mercy isn't weakness, trust isn't foolishness, and love, real love, isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who chooses you, brokenness and all, and decides you're worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth saving, even when saving them saves you too. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expected. Sometimes they're the ones the world told us to fear, the dangerous ones, the damaged ones, the ones carrying more scars than smiles. But maybe that's exactly who we need. People who understand that survival is an act of defiance, that choosing kindness in a cruel world takes more courage than any violence. Monica taught Alexander that mercy isn't weakness. Alexander taught Monica that accepting help isn't failure. And Sophie taught them both that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up when you need them most. If this story touched something inside you, we'd love to hear about it in the comments. Tell us. Have you ever been saved by an unexpected person? Have you ever been the unexpected savior? Your stories matter to us. Hit that like button to support narratives that remind us why compassion is revolutionary. Subscribe to Redemption Tales because we bring you new emotional journeys every single week. Stories that prove even broken people deserve second chances. And before you go, check out our next video or explore our playlist for more tales of love found in the darkest places. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, and remember, sometimes the best thing we can do is open the door when someone broken shows up asking for help. Good night.